a big day. I learned when I was a hockey official, you can get your butt kicked in the first 2 minutes of a game with 15-year-olds just as easily as you can. I did some professional hockey, believe it or not. I'm the reverse Steve Asmussen. You look at him today and you say, how could he have been a jockey? But you look at me and you say, how could he have gotten on the ice briefly with professional hockey players?
I was just going to say, because getting checked on the boards and,
And I got accidentally checked into the boards, took a puck off the head and all that. Never missed a minute. But, yeah, I was briefly a part-time official in a low-level professional hockey league. And I learned that, every call, every period, every game is a test. And that's the way it is here. So it's a big day, but tomorrow I'm looking forward to calling the races too. So, you got to keep it all in perspective.
Hey, Derek. Huh? Oh, you're good? Okay. So one thing that every single day obviously brings new challenges. There was a race the other day, Jim, that I think it was maybe a 7-8 horse field, and it looked like 3 of the riders had on the exact same silks, and I think of maybe the 7-horse field, 6 were dominantly blue silks. So what is your particular process? Because every track announcer kind of has their own method to their madness, if you will. So when horses come on, leave the paddock and come onto the track for post-parade, talk us through your ritual. Because some use crayons, markers, nothing. What do you do?
Well, when I started, I had one pen in the booth with me, and it was the pen I marked the results and the payoffs with. I did not believe in coloring silks. I worked with Trevor Denman in the beginning. He wasn't my first mentor, but he was new in the country, and I was new on the L.A. circuit.
It's a good mentor to have.
Yeah, exactly. I had tremendous mentors. And Trevor, it was just, I don't know what he does today, but back then, he didn't believe in colored markers. He didn't believe in looking at his program during the races, because over in South Africa, you just don't do that. So, and that's kind of the style that I had anyway. I didn't color the silks in when I was younger. I do now, as a concession either to the fact that I don't care anymore about how I look. I don't care that I have a million colored markers up there. It used to be kind of like, I don't need all those colored pens.
It was overkill.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, that's for guys who can't learn the fields. Well, then I learned that it's a nice tool to prep and to learn. So what I try to do is watch the TV shot and watch the riders when they come in out of the room and start learning the silks before that. I don't learn in advance. Like, I know who's in the Arkansas Derby, but if you ask me today, am I prepared for the 5th race? I got to wait till the 4th race is over to start worrying about the 5th race. So I don't pre-learn the silks. I start learning them in the paddock, and I love the fact that they'll be outdoors for some saddling, as I can get an extra look at the riders. Hollywood had an outdoor paddock. It was right below me.
Very big.
And I could watch the riders. I knew the fields before they stepped on the track back then. Now I do color in the silks, a rough approximation of the colors, more for my own benefit than during the running of the race. Because if I'm stalled on a horse during the race, I'm looking for that saddle number.
Right.
I'm looking for the yellow number 4 and then, as an emergency, yellow number 4. I'm not looking at the colors.
Right.
And I remember that race with all the blues. You see that all the time. I mean, we had a race recently with a whole bunch of black, variations of black. The difference is they're not all black. You got the State and Flurry black.
Right.
You got the
some
Holloman
with emblems
black.
or
some have emblems. Some have, it's very rare unless there's, 2 identical silks of the same owner.
Maybe an entry.
Right. And those are easy because you say, I got 2 sets of the Broberg silks like we had yesterday. I better keep them separate. So basically the process is you learn them any way you can. I write them in, I learn them, I get to know the owner's silks, I get to know the names. It's hard to explain. I don't know how guys play the piano for 2 hours either. But
tip money.
I just learn how to do it. I just force myself, basically. And now I've done it for so long that I don't even think about it. Separating silks is interesting, though, because the times you get fooled is when you're warming them up and you don't realize, it doesn't click. When they come out with 5 blues, you're like, I got to be careful.
Right.
The problem is you get a sneaky blue here in the 1 hole, and you got another blue that you're not really thinking about in the 9 hole, and you're not prepped for it. You're not thinking about it in advance. They pop out of there, and you call the wrong blue. That's happened. And that's when you're just up there thinking, why didn't I take 30 more seconds and overview the field warming up and say, I got to watch for the blue in this race.
Right.
You can consciously do that. So you just don't want to see a swatch of color and spit out the wrong name, because that could happen in the first race. It could happen in the Derby. It could happen a week from tomorrow, where you're just reacting to things.
Yeah, and
good.
A lot of different things can happen during the running of a
Sure.
race. Maybe a horse clips heels, or, is forced to check, or just is trailing the field by 20 lengths, which is something we'll probably see in the Arkansas Derby with Red Route 1. But how hard is it to juggle a full field? Is it easier for you, because I know track announcers have different preferences, those quick sprints that say are maybe 5.5 furlongs, or like the Arkansas Derby distance, which is 1 1/8, because there's a little more settle time?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. The short answer to that is you do have to approach the races differently. You just can't wind yourself up as much when they're going 9 furlongs, or yesterday we had that 1 3/16
Yes.
race. You still need to know the horses the same, but it's much like the tactics maybe of a jockey. When you're riding in at Lone Star, we run a lot of 5 furlong turf races, and they get on that far turn pretty fast, and they have big fields in those, and you can't dawdle around, or they're turning for home, and you haven't called the trailer yet. In a 12-horse field going 5 furlongs, you got to bust through them the first time through.
Right.
And so you're, like, this is a 40-year-old reference, but you're like Pat Valenzuela, who was a great gate rider. And
P-Val was amazing getting horses out of the gate.
He was a great rider, period.
Yes.
But, you got to be like a quarter horse getting out of there as a race caller. Say, I got to be ready for this. 1 3/16 race, you can take your time. You still have to know them just as well. And you just don't want your energy level to be too high at the beginning, or you drive yourself and everybody else nuts. Basically.
Well, I love your race calls, some of your expressions that you have given us this meet, and the level of excitement from an announcer like you is perfect for a fan like me, because you don't scream. You put that, what was the skit? You put the emphasis on the syllable. You remember that skit?
Yeah.
Was it Will Ferrell? But you give it when it's needed, like when they're coming up and just nailing each other right at the wire, like we saw yesterday with that long photo with John Horan. But it's nice and quiet. And one good thing, a good key to a track announcer, I think, is being able to not watch the race, but still listen to the call and know exactly where the horses are positioned. So kudos to you, because people say people want to poke the bear and be a Monday morning quarterback. That is a very, very hard thing that you do for a living.
It can be. It gets easier with repetition, and if you have the basic fundamentals for it, and then you practice it and you do it enough, and you get the composure and the presence of mind to keep yourself settled. I've found over the years that when I'm in a different situation, or I'm rattled for whatever reason, that I know internally I'm not doing the kind of work that I should be doing. It might not sound that different to the general listenership, but I know inside that, I should have gotten that horse doing this, and I should have not dropped this horse out of the call because then he wound up finishing third. I can pick apart stuff.
Right.
But I appreciate the compliments. I think it was John Lees is the person that I heard it, my predecessor at Lone Star, that said race callers are kind of like ice cream flavors. Everybody has a favorite, and
It's very true.
There's really no accounting for it. I try not to scream, but I do like to get excited when it's appropriate, you know. I just don't believe in a lot of manufactured excitement. Like with the Derby today, I'm just going to call the race that happens. And, if somebody strolls home by 5, it's going to be an appropriate call. It's not necessarily going to be a screaming call.
Right.
There might be a scream if 3 of them all hit the wire together. But you just call it the way it happens.
So let me ask you this. Some big races, I know Tom Durkin has done it. I think Larry Colmus has done it. They anticipate, say in a race like the Arkansas Derby, or let's say wet paint in today's fantasy. She could become just the second filly in the history of our 3-year-old filly division to sweep the series. So when things like that are going to happen, do you kind of anticipate maybe a specific something that you'll say? Or is it? Yeah. Or does it have to become, or do you manifest it just right off the bat?
Certain things, like, somebody sweeping a series, yes, you have to know that in advance. If you're trying to think about that in the final 3/16, you're going to say something's going to creep into your head. You're going to say the wrong name of somebody somewhere.
I need milk at Kroger, so I need milk at Kroger.
Yeah, exactly. Stray thoughts in your head aren't good as a race caller. You need to be really locked in. As far as the statistical details, milestones, yeah, you need to know that going in or you'll forget.
Right.
As far as the big sort of end of big race calls that callers do, and I've done them myself, sometimes those sound better an hour before the race in your head than when you actually have them, play out. You don't want to be, I'm pretty sure this is a age-old. I make a lot of old man references, and I don't feel very old, but I do.
I don't know if that parlays over to you, because I don't think of you as,
I don't either, but here's an old man reference.
I think it says I don't either.
I think Al Michaels in the Miracle on Ice call,
right?
I think he had a few things rattling around in his head, but I don't think he showed up at that arena thinking they were going to beat the Soviets.
No,
and I don't think
chance.
He had the "Do you believe in miracles" pre-scripted. It just happened. And the guy that called the 1951 most famous home run maybe in baseball history, the shot heard around the world when he screamed the Giants win the pennant 6 times, I don't think he had scripted that. So the best moments come.
They're organic.
Right. And as much as I admire Trevor, his call of Zenyatta and Blame, frankly, always kind of left me a little cold, because I think he so much wanted Zenyatta to win. It was kind of like, and Blame wins the Breeders' Cup Classic.
It was just that personal defeat, right. You almost felt, because who didn't want to cheer for Zenyatta that day?
I know, but, it's like, I totally get that, but that's where sometimes your personal feelings or your planned prep doesn't happen, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into today's race with a lot of pre-scripted finish calls, because what if wet paint doesn't win? I don't want to give the short shrift to somebody else,
right?
Because I'm, and that sort of thing, and even with the Derby, if Two Eagles River goes wire to wire, there's a call for that. If Red Route 1 comes from way out of it, there's a call for, if Reincarnate gets a better trip, you might throw in something like, nobody cut in front of them today.
Yeah, 10 different potential race calls
exactly.
in today's Arkansas Derby. I do want to let everyone know that if you would like to go on the guided barn tour, just go into the West Rock coffee table and grab a ticket. It simply just secures your seat on the bus. We'll have one more tour this morning, and training is going to wrap up at 9 o'clock today. For all of us to prep for the Arkansas Derby. I was going through some old notes, that I had made for Dawn at Oaklawn years ago, and it's obviously very tradition, the Arkansas Derby here at Oaklawn Park. And where's my stat? The first Arkansas Derby, today we're running for $1.25 million. It's the richest Kentucky Derby prep in the country. The first Arkansas Derby was run all the way back in 1936. Who can throw out what a potential purse was back in 1930? And this is an Arkansas Derby. $5,000.
Wow.
Back in 1936. It was won by Hall Image, who would go on to run 6th in the Kentucky Derby. And it's very ironic that during that timing, it was during the Great Depression. So $5,000 was a lot of coin back in the day. And the state government of Arkansas actually reached out to Oaklawn and asked them to run a 5th week of racing that particular season. So we've come a long way from an Arkansas Derby being $5,000 back in 1936 and $1.25 million today. And a lot of people think, oh, is it winner take all? Absolutely not. We pay all the way down, and 60% of the winning purse does go to the winning connections. It's then divvied up from there. So a really good card today. I spent about 3 hours last night making notes on all of the stakes, getting quotes. We have an amazing notes team here that goes out and interviews the connections. And it's going to be a really, really good day.
It really is. To show you how times have changed. At one point, when I got in the sport in the early 80s, PR departments kept track of riders that won $100,000 stakes. And it was a big deal. Shoemaker had won umpty-ump $100,000. Today, in keeping with the purse elevations in modern times, the 9th race has 3-year-olds, restricted to 3-year-old maidens, $110,000 purse.
I mean, that's
$100,000
that's amazing.
Maiden race.
Yeah, more than $3.5 million will be distributed today. And we always talk about the Arkansas Derby, but the Fantasy has always been one of my favorite races, and has produced some amazing horses. I was talking about that Wet Paint could become just the second filly in the history of the 3-year-old filly series to sweep. And it was a very famous horse that was the first to do so. How many of you remember 8 Bells? Yeah, a lot of you remember 8 Bells. She swept the Martha Washington, the Honeybee, and the Fantasy in 8 Bells, and actually ran second in the Kentucky Derby. So that just shows, even going way back, the caliber of horse that is prepped at Oaklawn to go on to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it's incredible. And even if you take the Derby part out of the great 3-year-old fillies that have been here, and you just look at them competing within their own division, I mean, in my time at Hollywood Park in the 80s, we would have fillies come back here for that race and for the Apple Blossom. And when you look back at the history of the race in the last 30 or 40 years, it's remarkable. It's just... I like the filly side of it, and especially with D. Wayne Lucas, who's still here and obviously having a really nice portion of his career. He used to bring these fillies back here, Althea, I think, and some of them.
Althea was the filly that won the Arkansas Derby in 1984.
Yeah.
And she came back just 7 days after a win in a prep. So Wayne's like, you know what? She's doing that good. Yeah. Let's run her back against the boys.
Fillies like that were amazing, and Wayne Lucas certainly had a whole bunch of them all over the years that have run here in this race and the Apple Blossom.
So let's talk a little bit about the 4 stakes on today's card, Jim. First, we do have the 8th running of the Hot Springs. It is 1 mile. That is for 3-year-olds. There are several horses that are coming out of Derby preps that are shortening up into today's Hot Springs Stakes, and Bob Baffert has shipped in a couple for these amazing stakes, not in the Fantasy or the Arkansas Derby. He's not eligible for points, but some really good runners, and Iron Clover from the barn of Brad Cox, Florent Giroux. We're very fortunate that on these big days we already have some of the best connections in the country, but even more come in for a day like this because they want that change.
Yeah. It's really cool to see the riders ship in. I mean, when I and I'm sorry I'm saying this all the time, but when I was in L.A., and you see Cordero come out,
yes,
or guys like that from the East, that was a really big deal. Jorge Velasquez, Jacinto Vasquez, these guys, and then in more recent times, when I was at Remington or even at Lone Star, we'll see. Last year, Javier Castellano came in and won a race.
Right.
So yeah, it's cool to have the riders here. I think it could be a really big day for Asmussen. I'm picking Steve up and down the card, and I like Gun Pilot in that race. I mean, he exits a race, the Rebel on the slop, and he just saved ground and just kind of went around there and wound up well beaten. But I think on a drier track today, and I think by the 8th race, hopefully it'll be fast. I mean, Who knows?
Kudos. Let's just say this
yeah.
right now to our track maintenance guys, because they put in some very hard-working, long hours. If you were here yesterday or even just in the vicinity, you know of the massive weather front that came in. And for the first time that I've ever experienced, we had actually tornado emergency sirens going off on the phones. Not a tornado watch, not a tornado warning. So shortly after that is when the skies just completely opened up and down came all of the rain, washed the spiders out. No, I'm kidding. Anybody get that? I thought it was funny. But, you know, the rain came down. We were over a sloppy surface. I think I'm way funnier than other people do. My husband does not think I'm funny. But we were under sloppy conditions. And then before the card was over, Jim, we were already upgraded to muddy.
Yeah.
So when you look at the track this morning, I went ahead and handicapped for a fast track because this track does dry out so exceptionally well.
Yeah, if it's not technically fast, it'll be essentially fast.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've never seen a track dry out this fast. And
It's amazing.
I'm used to several days of tracks being sloppy to muddy, and then they get thick and gooey, and that back when, but not anymore. So, yeah, I don't worry too much today about looking at mud form. And, you know, I think all the stakes came up pretty strongly today. There might not be the depth in the fantasy, but you have a potential just superstar. So I think that kind of makes up for the fact that, you know, maybe there aren't 5 fillies that could beat Wet Paint, but at least there's Wet Paint in there, and that alone might make it a very memorable race.
Earlier on the card is race number 5. That's actually the Grade 3 Oaklawn Mile. And a horse that you're very excited about is Smile Happy. He was dominant in his 2-year-old campaign and returned off of that effort in the Kentucky Derby. Kenny McPeak has said, you know, he came out of it with some bone bruising, and when they did try to bring him back the first time, he just wasn't ready. But the second time they brought him back, obviously worked very, very well. So we'll see if Smile Happy can get back to his stakes-winning form today.
Yeah, that's a really interesting race because Baffert has Hopper in here, straight out of Southern California. He comes out of the Santa Anita Handicap, which, you know, for many decades was one of the premier races in the country. It still is, but it's early in the year, and sometimes those handicap races early in the year with today's racing schedule kind of get, not forgotten, but they kind of get shunted aside. But, you know, he comes out of a 4th in the big cap, and you know, he's got obviously a lot of dangerous speed, but the way Smile Happy sat off the pace and rallied, I mean, he was fully extended in his comeback race here, but he put up a huge buyer, and I think, you know, I think having him had a race over the track and a really good one,
agreed,
could be important for him. We don't know how Hopper's going to ship. I mean, he worked just as recently as the 26th at Santa Anita, so he's kind of fresh off the plane. Very talented runner, Grade 3 winner out there, but, you know, I'm curious to see how Smile Happy wins. You know, then you got some old pros like Silver Prospector, who just when you maybe don't expect it, he runs a huge race.
They show up and light up the board.
Caddo Rivers, another one, loves Oaklawn.
Well, it's interesting talking about Smile Happy and our amazing notes writers. Kenny McPeak was pretty vocal about how he's a really tricky horse to train. Some days he wants to go out and really put on a show. Other days he's like, no, I'm not doing it today. So it's very, I mean, horses are just like people. They have very distinct personalities. You know, some are like, I compare them to bears. Some are like big teddy bears. You can go and love on them and kiss them right on the lips. And others, if you get within a foot of their stall, they're going to grab you like Godzilla. Yeah. So very, very individual.
Well, I hope the good Smile Happy is the one that runs today, because that was quite a sight last time out.
When Jim had mentioned Hopper from the barn of Bob Baffert, Bob had said there's not a race for him out in Southern California. So it's very easy to make the trip. Actually, it's much easier for horses to come out from Southern California. And did you know you can FedEx a horse? You can literally FedEx anything, but you can FedEx horses. So that's a very cold flight. I've been on, not a FedEx flight, but a Tex Sutton flight. One of the cold, I mean, I lived in Chicago winters for years, vacationed in Alaska in the winter, not by choice. but being in a horse plane is the coldest I have ever been. And my little Chihuahua at the time, I thought was going to be a popsicle because you could literally see the condensation on the walls at 30,000 feet. But the horses, they fly in style.
Now, surely, I mean, obviously, it's pressurized.
Yes.
Why is it so cold? Do they not, well, I mean, we're sitting in a pressurized cabin at 30,000 feet, but they're heating and air conditioning. Do they just not go to that trouble?
It's literally a cargo plane.
Yeah.
But it's 5-star, for the horses.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting when horses do travel via plane, they get on the van at their respective racetrack. Let's say Santa Anita. They get on the van at Santa Anita, and the next time they touch the actual ground is here at Oaklawn Park. Just because of all of the trailer ramps, you would pretty much have to ramp a horse into the plane. God forbid a horse got loose on a tarmac. Horses have gotten loose on freeways. It's happened several times at Golden Gate out in San Francisco. But yeah, horses fly in complete luxury.
Yeah, that's good.
So, yeah, but it's cold. It's cold. That's actually how I moved from Southern California to Kentucky. I put all my stuff in the belly of a horse plane. So,
that's awesome.
yeah, it was much cheaper than U-Haul. Also on the day's card is, as we mentioned, the hot springs for 3-year-olds. And then let's talk fantasy. As I mentioned, Wet Paint does have the opportunity to become just the second filly in the 3-year-old filly series to form a sweep. She's 3 for 3 over wet tracks. Obviously, she's been dominant over wet tracks. And her last performance, I got goosebumps, and I thought, there's our Kentucky Oaks winner. But she is going to get a fast surface today. But what if she's really good on wet tracks, but better on a dry? Because she obviously trains over a regular surface.
And trains very well. I mean, time-wise, at least. She trains very well over the dry surfaces. I mean, you see a whole string of dry track, really, really solid works. And I would think most really elite horses would train well. I mean, there's probably been some that over the years that don't really get into the morning work, or they know, like I think John Henry toward the end of his career probably knew that when he was out here in the morning he wasn't really getting paid. That was not what he was around for, so he did his job and went back. But I don't know if he was going to be putting a lot of bullet works up necessarily. But these younger elite horses, they should work fast. But it certainly looks like she I don't see any reason why she wouldn't like it. It's just curious because she's run on turf, synthetic, 3 times on slop. So here's this accomplished filly that's, potentially rolling right through to the Kentucky Oaks that has never been on a dry, fast track.
Well, it's interesting. Some people say, well, she broke her maiden at Indiana, but Brad Cox has so many horses. He doesn't care where they break their maiden. It's almost more important that they get a really good experience out of it. Monomoy Girl, the champion Monomoy Girl, broke her maiden in Indiana. Yeah. So it's as long as they have a really good experience, that's so much more important than the purse money, because look what she's gone on to earn.
Wicked Halo broke her maiden at Lone Star.
Yeah.
Debuted there. Superstock also debuted and then broke his maiden in his, I believe, his second start at Lone Star.
And was a stakes winner at Lone Star as well.
Yeah, and so, Asmussen obviously has a home there, not far from Grand Prairie, not far from Lone Star, and visits there frequently, and he keeps a lot of horses at Lone Star. But, they can break their maidens anywhere, really. And I think it shows that Horseshoe Indianapolis has some pretty good racing too, I think.
Yes, we do.
You rattled
Beautiful
off some horses that broke their maidens there. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good sign.
An interesting runner in that field is the number 1. She's looking lucky. Our leading rider, Christian Torres, does have the mount for trainer Matt Shire, who a win could give Matt Shire his first graded stakes win, and she certainly fits and deserves the chance. Or in my opinion, she does anyway. She was a second, her first time taking on winners, to a filly by the name of Punch Bowl. Punch Bowl is undefeated, trained by Brad Cox, and Punch Bowl is Grade 1 bound in the Ashland next Saturday, so I certainly think that she fits.
For sure. I mean, if you're within 5 lengths of Punch Bowl, and what's really neat about Punch Bowl is she broke her maiden in Silky Sullivan fashion, and then she went right up on the engine the second time and stretched out and won basically in front-running fashion.
Yes.
And that's, that's a pretty good display of talent. It's not like she's some one-dimensional speedball or, So, yeah, seeing Punch Bowl in any sort of company line is
kind of pay
really
more
good.
attention.
And she ran well. I mean, she chased her along in that 2-turn race where Punch Bowl just, ran away from them and gave them no chance. So, yeah, I mean, she's a very logical second choice and a very logical contender if Wet Paint, for whatever reason, isn't on today.
I think there's another pretty interesting filly in there by the name of Royal Spa, trained by Rudy Brissett. Rudy saddled last year's fantasy winner in Ugiri, and Rudy said that, she needed that last race and really liked the way that she came out of it. When that hole opened up, she just exploded down the lane and certainly has potential to saddle back-to-back fantasy winners.
Yeah, I mean, that was my notes on her was that was a really good sprint, and now, now she gets to go a mile and a 16th. That was a really good effort. That was on my first day here back on March 2nd, and I remember that. That was a remarkable finish. I mean, she was favored that day at 4-5, so she was expected to run well, but I think she even outran that.
So obviously today's fantasy is a qualifying race towards the Kentucky Oaks. 200 total points now awarded through the top 5 finishers, 100 points to the winner, and certainly guaranteeing them a spot in the starting gate the first Friday in May. But obviously, our big key race today is the Arkansas Derby. This is the 87th running. Not running for that $5,000 as they did in the inaugural running of the Arkansas Derby, but $1.25 million. It is the richest Kentucky Derby prep in the history. There is a scratch of the number 11 Colomio, so it's now numbers 1 through 10, and a very, very interesting race. And you could really look at this from a lot of different vantage points because, trainers like to say he deserves to be there, and a lot of these do.
Yeah, they really do. And what's interesting, too, is you have some horses coming in here. They're not all just locally based. You got a horse coming in from South Florida and Rocket Can. I know he has, Arkansas connections.
Frank Fletcher connections.
Yeah, but, he has raced everywhere, other major circuits but here. Saratoga, Churchill, and Gulfstream. And he comes out of a pretty good second behind Forte. You got horses that came off recent impressive maiden wins here. They're long shots. And then you got these stakes-tested horses coming in from fairgrounds and whatnot. So, yeah, really interesting race. A couple of really wise handicappers that I've known for a long time, like Two Eagles River in there. I ended up ranking him 4th, but it's a remarkable race. You got 2 horses that are going to get a lot of money and Reincarnate and Red Route 1 coming in off less than ideal trips in the Rebel, especially Reincarnate. He's got that Southern California back form. It's got some interesting jockey switches.
Yes.
Got a different rider going on Bourbon Bash, different rider going on Red Route 1. So it's a fascinating race in a lot of different ways.
Well, it's interesting, again, referencing some of our notes. Interlock Empire, who is the 2-horse, just does come off a maiden win, and several are coming off their maiden win. So it's to me, a significant ask, not only stepping up against winners, but doing it against Grade 1 company. So one of those is Interlock Empire from the barn of Kenny McPeak, David Cabrera to ride. And Kenny has said, I think he's a horse that might need a little setup, and he could be better at today's Arkansas Derby distance of 1 1/8. But I also love the fact, Jim, that he says we have 0 expectations, but we're hoping for more.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's nowhere to go from there.
Exactly.
If you don't have any expectations. But, I mean, his maiden win was impressive. I went back and rewatched the race and kicked myself because a couple of times in the middle of the race I called him Interlocking Empire. So I don't want to think about that anymore. I'll do it again
Well, you
today.
didn't call him, Empire Maker or anything.
Yeah,
You
I wouldn't
added
wanna do
an ing.
that.
We're gonna forgive
But,
you for that.
No, but that was a really impressive maiden score. We'll see how he fares today. I think that's the right attitude. You put him in there, and he's going to be way out of it early. If he makes a run, great. And you kind of see what you have. But
Brad Cox is actually looking for back-to-back Arkansas Derby wins. He did score the victory last year with Cyberknife. He sends out the number 6 Angel of Empire. Flavien Prat is in for the weekend. Those two have had a lot of success together, and Pratt, in addition to Giroux, but Pratt more dominantly has really been his go-to guy for these bigger moments this year. Angel of Empire is actually looking for back-to-back graded stakes. He won the Grade 2 Risen Star. So it's going to be an interesting setup for him because points-wise, he's good for the Derby.
Yeah, he is. He wins the Risen Star. He switches to Pratt today from Luis Saez. That was a weird race to go back and rewatch because it was run basically at night. They're lighting there. I mean, it could use some improvement. Talking
about the fairgrounds.
Yeah, that race was basically run in darkness.
Yeah.
And
probably like the 18th race on the card after
yeah.
sunset.
Yeah, it was. And the way the race was shot, and look, I've never run a camera for a race, but coming from home, they were 13 little ants running in the dark if you go watch the race. So I couldn't get a lot out of that race visually.
We need jockey lights like miners' hats.
Exactly.
Maybe next time.
It was a very wide camera angle on a very long stretch track. But anyway, I'm not complaining about that. That's not my business. But, Two Phils was in that race. He's come back and won the Jeff Ruby, a graded race. I just wasn't visually that impressed with him finishing. It just looked like he kind of wore him down.
Yeah.
But, he won the Risen Star, and, he could be this good very easily. It's just sometimes you watch a race, and this can be a mistake. A horse passes the eye test. Maybe the eye test isn't always the best way to go, but, with Angel of Empire, a lot of respect for the barn, but it's hard to pass the eye test in that fairgrounds race because it was a little hard to see.
Right. Jim did reference Frank Fletcher, a very prominent Little Rock businessman. He actually owns the number 7 Rocket Can. This one trained by Belmont. Junior Alvarado in to ride. He actually arrived from Florida on Tuesday, and Frank has actually won his very first race as an owner at Oaklawn Park in 1989, and a win today would be literally the 34th anniversary of his first win here at Oaklawn. That would be a very full circle moment. Yeah,
that would be tremendous. Well, this horse is firing bullets down at Payson Park and the training center, and he's got a good style. He's not going to be too far out of it. I don't think anybody had a chance the way Forte ran in that Fountain of Youth, but he beat everybody else. Yeah. And if you're going to be up in the race, that's an advantage sometimes. Reincarnate and Red Route 1 are going to have to either go 7 wide or find a way through or whatever. Reincarnate maybe not because he used to be very forwardly placed. But, Rocket Can, I thought he ran pretty well in Gulfstream.
Let's talk about Reincarnate because it would be another big milestone for him today because a win for trainer Tim Yakteen and John Velasquez. Today is actually the third birthday. Thoroughbreds turn a year older on New Year's Day, but literally and physically is his 3-year-old birthday today.
All right. He's an April Fool's birth.
Can you imagine calling the connections? We've got a colt. Really? Or saying we got a filly and we really got a colt, or something.
Yeah.
That is April Fool's Day today, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. He's dripping with talent. Last time when you watch his race, the more and more you watch the Rebel, he really took the worst of it in every respect.
Yes.
But if he can show more speed and be up more in it and not get all shuffled, and he didn't really break like he usually does.
Yeah, he trailed by about a dozen
Yeah.
lengths around the first quarter and was actually shut off in the mid-stretch. So,
Yeah.
a lot of the horses, I think, coming into the Kentucky Derby Series still have yet to run a bad race. That might have been his bad race.
Yeah, and even bad, he ran third, and was just just barely beaten by Red Route 1, about, I guess, a length and a half. But Red Route 1 had, a pretty much clear path, even though he was coming from 20 lengths out.
And today is literally make or break for Reincarnate, as right now, 20 horses can make the starting gate that first Saturday in May. And currently, Reincarnate is 34th on the list. So he's going to need a top 2 finish if he does want to make that starting gate. So it's kind of all systems go.
Yeah, I would say so. And, he's got a lot of credentials, and he's the morning line favorite, and I think justifiably so. We'll just see if he's able to show a little more eagerness, get out of there a little better, and be up in the race a little more.
Another very interesting runner, and I love watching this horse run, but he makes me so nervous when he does, and that is Red Route 1 from the barn of Steve Asmussen. Tyler Gaffleone in the irons today. He was runner-up in not only the Southwest, but also the Rebel, and I think in the shot down the backside, he wasn't even in the shot because he was so far out of it and had a lot to do, but still just comes rolling like a freight train. But the barn is actually putting blinkers on today to maybe help him engage a little bit more. And Steve has said he's actually trained with those blinkers since that runner-up in the Rebel.
That's good to know. That I didn't realize that. That's a good thing to know. Steve did address in some quotes that I saw that he hopes it doesn't, putting blinkers on him probably will get him back up into the race, because he didn't used to drop 20 lengths out. He used to drop 8 to 10 lengths back. So he was twice as far back as usual.
From the horse that was in front of him.
Yeah. And, but he hopes it doesn't take some of his closing punch away. And I hope so, too, because I picked him. He changed leads very, very late in that race, in the race with Confidence Game. If he changes leads more in the upper stretch like they're supposed to, maybe he gets even closer to Confidence Game. I love the way he finishes. I like his style as well. They're adding blinkers. They're changing riders. They're doing quite a bit to see if he can. The one thing about him, and I do not mean this as a slur toward Barber Road, but I hope he's not kind of this year's Barber Road, that we just keep thinking if he gets a little longer, if he stays a little closer to the lead, the further he goes, the next longer race is going to be his thing. Well, and Barber Road's a wonderful horse. I'd love to own him.
Oh, he's an owner's dream. He's an owner's ATM.
But he's made his living running thirds and seconds, coming from behind in big races, and ever increasing distances. You think this is it. So I'm biting on Red Route 1 today. That's my pick.
I love him today as well. I think the mile and an eighth and blinkers and Tyler, nothing against his previous riders, but Tyler won a future Hall of Famer, and just I think he has the potential to be a difference maker in this field.
I think so. I mean, he's, again, to say nothing about it's just a different set of hands.
It's not jockey racing, it's horse racing, but you're getting they can make a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, just in terms of having a different guy, a different approach. Tyler seems very adept at avoiding trouble if he's on come from behinders. There's some luck involved in that, but riding with such confidence.
Yes.
Not that these other guys aren't, but
he's just very cerebral. I mean, when he's in the race, you can almost envision what's going to happen, and you really do have to anticipate what's going to happen and race shape while you're out there on the racetrack. So, I'm a big fan of Red Route 1 today, and I think we're also going to get maybe a good price. I don't think he's going to go off as the favorite.
Yeah, Rick Lee doesn't have him as the favorite either. He'll probably get a lot of support, but I think Reincarnate's going to attract a lot of attention. Just the connections and his overall excellent so far, and the fact that it was so easy to excuse the Rebel trip.
And a win in today's Arkansas Derby for Steve Asmussen would be a record-tying 5th Arkansas Derby. So he's right there with Todd Pletcher. So as Jim mentioned, it could be a very potential good day for Steve Asmussen. And it's days like this, the Arkansas Derby, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, that barn sent, I haven't even looked at Equibase, but I'm guessing they have at least one horse in probably 10 races. How many does he have in today,
Okay,
Jim?
well, thankfully I have this. Let's see, he's got 5. He's got 10. He's in 10 races today.
So
races
we
1,
have
4,
13
5, 7, 8,
on the
9.
card,
Yeah.
and Steve Asmussen is represented in 10 of them. So basically back at the barn during training, it's like an assembly line. It's like the Ford manufacturing plant because you've got, grooms know exactly what they have to do, when the horses have to go over, and this is not unusual for the Asmussen barn whatsoever. This is just a regular day at the office.
He's got a horse in every race, starting with the 7th to the 13th.
So
and
so some races he'll be represented with more than one contender. So a really, really busy day. And obviously Steve does very well at this track, multiple time leading trainer, and a big milestone that he celebrated on President's Day in February. He saddled his 10,000th winner. He's the only person in North America to do so. He's not the only person in the world to do so, however. There is a gentleman in Peru that has, I think, maybe 300 more wins than he does. But at the rate Steve has horses and sends them out across the country, he could very easily match that within a year or two.
I would certainly think so. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't show any signs of wanting to step aside or slowing down.
No, not by any means. Don't forget, we did back up post time just a little bit today. First post is actually 12:15 instead of 12:30. The infield, gorgeous day to be open. It's not only the best racing in the country specifically today, but it's probably the best people watching as well. Seeing the ladies all adorned in their Derby attire, and there's going to be some pretty cool suits that the guys, now they look like jockey silks, or
Cool.
People get really creative here at Oaklawn.
That'll be neat. I thought wearing a black shirt was a big deal, but I guess it isn't.
Well, you have the best view because Jim's office is all the way up on the 5th floor, so he's got the greatest vantage point in all of the racetrack, and obviously need that for the call.
It's helpful, but yeah, it really is. And most announcers' booths, as this one does, have a little stick out with the window where you get a little
bird seat or cat seat, whatever they call it.
Yeah, exactly. You get a little bit view a little bit out from the window, so you're not looking through windows and whatnot, and you can see where that protrudes out. So yeah, it's a really nice view, and there's going to be a lot of fun today.
How many of you knew that the infield at Oaklawn used to be a 9-hole golf course? Eric Jackson, who's our former GM, played this course as a teenager, and I think he said the green fees were $1.50, so that can tell you how long ago. And you can literally visualize it with the rolling kind of hills and how it banks and everything. If they turn that back into a golf course, it could be a serious green fee. I don't think the green fee would be $1.50.
Not anymore. The gentleman that runs the elevator said he played the golf course too.
Did he?
I didn't realize that it was a golf course until he mentioned that. And I think he said he used to come over after school and they'd go around and play. Yeah,
that's amazing. A lot of history, not only in horse racing, lots of traditions as well, but a lot of really cool stories have happened here on the backside. And up until I think maybe the late 80s or so, they actually had Clydesdales pull the starting gate. One of my very first memories of Oaklawn, I was maybe 5 or 6, and my grandfather, who was a former trainer, brought me out to see the Clydesdales pull the starting gate, and that was very, very cool.
Yeah. In the 80s, when I was in California, Santa Anita still had Clydesdales position the gate, and except in bad weather. If there was, Santa Anita did occasionally run in bad weather.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But
chance of sprinkle.
Yeah,
no
they cancel it much quicker these days. But back then, nothing stopped the races. But the Clydesdales would stay in the barn if it was sloppy, and they'd have a tractor. But,
divas, you know.
But it was, it was cool to see them come out there. It was fun. And it was quite a deal.
Yeah, there's a just amazing amount of tradition. Hello, Georgie. Georgie Abreu is the primary assistant for trainer Brad Cox here at Oaklawn Park. Does a very good job and then goes to Churchill Downs when this meet wraps up. So it's interesting, you know, this is the time of year, this is the earliest that the Arkansas Derby has ever been in my recent history, at least in the 30 years that I can recall. But the end of the meet is fairly bittersweet because, you know, horses are starting to ship out, go on to their next racetrack destination. But the one really cool thing is, you know, it can be a little sad, you know, seeing all these tractor trailers come to ship the horses. But there is a guarantee in horse racing that come November, everybody comes back here, which is always great to see.
That's true. It'll be fun to have them rolling back in. And meanwhile, we'll still have a few weeks of racing left to go after this, and look forward to the races remaining here, and also the Kentucky Derby and the festivities that come when you can watch and wager on that, even though you're not actually at Churchill.
Right.
But every track has a special feel, I think, on Derby Day, and that's the way we get to wrap up here.
And still some really important key races are to be run here at the meet. In a few weeks, we'll have the Oaklawn Handicap. We'll have the Apple Blossom. The Apple Blossom has gained national and international prominence. Part of that with the help of Zenyatta several years ago when she danced in the infield for the winner's circle. But literally the best horses in the country make Hot Springs a stop.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Apple Blossom. I love the filly and mare racing, and some of the history of that race is remarkable as well. So looking forward to that. And, you know, every day is a treat. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Exactly.
It's definitely a new adventure. So does anybody have any questions specifically for Jim? Not me. I'm going to put you on the spot, Jim. No, but we're so happy to be able to have you here. And I was a fan of your race calls anyway. We've gotten to work together prior, and I was given the opportunity last year to go work some races on some big days at Lone Star. But I love your I call them isms. What was the one? Isolated Splendor.
Isolated Splendor, which I didn't make up, but I had never used it in a call. It's normally used at the finish, and I almost did bring it back out the other day. We had a horse that won by double digits, and I almost brought out the Isolated Splendor. But I used it at about the half-mile pole, I think, and that got your attention. And
it did.
Sometimes you drop little things into the call, and you just sort of, just to amuse myself. And occasionally you say something you don't even think is noteworthy, and people will send you a message and say, hey, I like the way you said that. And a lot of times it's when you're not trying. So
this is kind of your longest experience in Hot Springs, and now you've really gotten to see, you know, the fan base. We have very, very high level fan base here. They're very intelligent handicappers. What's kind of your assessment of Oaklawn and why people keep coming back?
You know, there's an old school touch to it, which I like. It's racing. I don't want to say simplified, but it's celebrating the sport and the horse.
We're embracing horse racing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And yeah, sure, there's a casino right there, but you know, when you walk from the casino to the track, it's like it's celebrating the horse.
Yes.
And not that every track does it in their own way, but I think that's what makes it special. I think just the setting, the history, the competitiveness of the racing. I mean, it's strip it all down. It's a great place to handicap and play the races. Horses win every day that are either noteworthy or they jump up and have big performances, and you're like, you know, only at a place like this would that horse win this race because it's just so competitive. And you know, you don't have a small number of trainers dominating. You know, it's great racing and stars of the sport. You know.
Yeah, and we have often launched a lot of future stars and future champions. So that just is a testament to Oaklawn and their racing product. And the purse distribution gets bigger and bigger each year. So that's why we do have those very prominent names, multiple Hall of Fame trainers and future Hall of Fame trainers are stabled here. So very excited about today's card and the remainder of the race card. We've actually got a stakes tomorrow. I didn't realize that until I looked on the overnight just a little bit ago. Lone Rock for the barn of Robertino Diodoro looks for a repeat performance in the Temperance Hill. Temperance Hill, a very popular horse here back in the day. But yeah, that's always a fun race. And yeah, I didn't realize we had a stakes until I looked at the overnight, and I'm thinking, it's a full weekend.
Yeah.
We're just packing it all in.
Get geared back up.
Yes.
And the Temperance Hill's 1.5 miles, so that's going to be a lot of fun. You got some real stayers in that race.
A good little marathon
tomorrow.
Race.
Yeah.
Yep. So I do want to thank all of you for coming out this morning. Feel free to line your pockets with some pastries. Ramsey Zimmerman right there. Good morning, Ramsey. So, yeah, we're very blessed to be able to have the racing product that we do, have the fan base, the intelligent fan base that we do, whether it's novice, they keep coming out. We love that. And it's a great family atmosphere as well. Lots of things will be going on in the infield. Chris, can I borrow you for a second? This is Chris Ho, our Vice President of Marketing. What are some of the things going on in the infield today? Because other than spectacular people watching, what else can they look forward to?
Well, we do have stuff for kids out there. There'll be bouncy houses, there'll be magicians, face painting, but we do have our Derby hat contest. So at 1, 2, and 3 o'clock, everyone who has a fancy hat, wants to show it off, come out to the infield, sign up for the contest, and we'll judge each one. There'll be first, second, and third place for each race, for each session.
So what are some prizes that the fans can look forward to?
Prizes are great. So first prize, you'll get a sash, a trophy, $100 gift card, $100 to the Bugler, $75 to the Astral Spa, and then a $75 race bet voucher.
Am I eligible? Can I? No?
No, I don't think so. But second and third place are great too. Same prize, is just lower dollar amounts.
That's huge. I think, Derek, which weekend was it I actually went down the bouncy house slide, like multiple times? It might have been Rebel last year, the big blow-up slides for kids. I'm like, this has got me written all over it. So, yeah, it's good fun for the family, and it's a great way to introduce people to the sport. Absolutely.
We're going to try to get a live hit of you coming down the bouncy house this year.
Well, I think I had pants on last time.
We can get some pants.
I'll go grab some pants. But, yeah, I told the kid, you got to wait. It's my turn. You know, he was trying to cut in front of me. But we do want to thank all of you for coming out. Don't forget the first post for the 13-race Arkansas Derby card is 12:15. Jim and I will be breaking down races 5 through 13. We're going to do an abbreviated show so we can get the stakes in. That will be at 11 o'clock. So we want to thank you all for coming out. And thank you for coming from your hotel room.
Yeah, it's not a long commute. I'm currently staying in the hotel. So, yeah, it was not a difficult assignment to haul myself over here, but no, I appreciate your asking. I jokingly said a few weeks ago you had Asmussen, then you had the Hall of Famers, then you had D. Wayne Lucas, and now you have me. So I don't really want to see the graph.
Jim. Same
I don't want to see
caliber.
the graph of the notoriety of the guests. But
and
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And all of those former Dawn at Oaklawns are on Oaklawn's YouTube channel, right?
Absolutely. They are. Yep.
Some really good stories from D. Wayne Lucas. Yeah. 87 years old, and they're calling this his revival. He's got some of the best 2-year-olds in the barn right now. His owners have spent more than $9 million, I think was the dollar amount, on new stock. So still gets on the pony every single day, and we are so fortunate to have horsemen like him based here at Oaklawn for the winter. So thank you so much to Jim.
Welcome. Thank you.
Chris, anything else that our fan base needs to know? Because there's a lot going on today, and I don't want to name names, but there's going to be some big names in the house too.
There are. There's also a DJ going to be out in the infield. So get out there early, and
Does he take requests?
Probably so, yes.
Will he play Timmy Trumpet?
You can ask him.
Okay. I'm going to go out there and rave a little bit in the, we'll go out and rave in the infield. So again, training will wrap up at 9 o'clock today, which is several hours earlier, so we can prepare for the Arkansas Derby, and all of our staff can get prepared as well. So I want to thank all of you for coming out. Please feel free to enjoy the West Rock coffee and the pastries provided. So again, next Saturday, we'll do it all over again. Tom Van Berg is my guest, and we'll be discussing horse equipment and all of their uses. So it's a really good, insightful program. So thank you, everyone, for coming out for the Arkansas Derby down at Oaklawn.